All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and I've been going through a series of video presentations where I first made about 9 presentations on HTML, the hypertext markup language, which is used to put content into a web page, and I'm on about number 5 for CSS cascading style sheets, which allows us to style a web page. And I showed you a little bit, and we talked a little bit about this images in the last video, and I want to talk a little bit more about images. So here are what are considered to be the supported image framework, and there are actually others other than this. All right, I'm not going to give you a chronology or talk about this in any way like that, but I do want to mention these 4 because they're probably the 4 biggest players. Now they also have, it says in here, I don't want that now. We'll look at it in a minute. So JPEG, sometimes it's .jpeg, sometimes it's just .jpg. Stands for Joint Photographic Expert Group Image. And typically it's used for photographs. All right. Then there's PNG, which is Portable Network Graphics. All right. And it can be used for photographs as well. Then there's SVG, which is Scalable Vector Graphics. And those do scale really well. So as the size of your screen gets bigger, smaller, wider, taller, etc., SVG images scale appropriately. Then there's WebP, which is pretty new. And that's Google's web picture font. All right. And I was going to look in here and see if I found anything that I thought was good. You already know this, but when you put in the image tag, it's IMG and source. Now, I've always prefaced mine with images because I put things right in an image folder, and then alt. So you should, again, be very cognizant of the fact that you want to put in a source tag always and an alt tag always. If you need more on that, there's the source tag and there's the alt tag. I'm not going to talk anymore about those. Now, what you can do, but should never do, is when you are putting in the size of the image, scale it yourself using inline CSS. So when you look at this, you've got this. All right, it works, but what if I did this? What if I made this 300 and ran it? You can see what it does is it starts to take what you're working with, and let's make the height here 100, and it skews it. And it's very easy to skew things like this, all right, when you're working with it in this way. Now, if you remember, one thing that I talked about before was to say max width 100%. So let's see what happens when we do that. Whoops. And we run. And you see it looks a lot nicer. But you should never put and mix your CSS right inside of your HTML. We've talked about this several times before. All right. It says width, height, or style. We suggest using the style attribute, which prevents style sheets from changing the images. So notice if you do that and you say the width, that's probably a cleaner way to do it. And like I said, rather than saying width 100%, you typically would say max width. All right. We've talked about all this kind of stuff before. So I've shown you how to take an image and make it a link. All right, let's talk a little bit here about floating. All right, because it's probably just about time to get into talking about floats. All right, use the CSS float property to let the image float to the right or the left of the text. So you look at this. Here's the image. All right, but let's choose something that's a little bit better to choose. All right, so in other words, I'm just going to put in here, I don't know, images.google.com, and let's put in here puppy. All right, and I'm going to look for something smaller with like a little puppy image. That should work. Yeah, that'll work. It's pretty big, but we'll save it. In fact, I'll give me a chance to show you something here. So I'm going to, let's see. I don't like, it's not going to work very well. So we'll come here. Right mouse click, save image as, and I'm just going to save it in our folder that we've been using, which is called Sandbox, and in Day 2 and in Images, and I'll make it puppy.jpg. All right, and now I'm going to bring that file up, but I'm going to show you if for some reason you ever had to scale it, how you could. It's 368 by 368, and that's good because it's a square. But if I bring this up and I open it with Paint, this is the size of it right now. I don't want to do this. That would be silly, or lack of better word, stupid. But if I come in here and I click on Home and I say to resize, and I click on pixels, notice 368 by 368. So if I want to make it, let's say 200 by 200, and I click, well, now it's a little bit better size, and it's scaled pretty much appropriately. All right, I'm going to make it a little smaller than that. So I'm going to make it, let's say, 125 by 125. That's pretty good. Now when I save it, all right, I'm going to save it, and I'm going to be able to actually use it, hopefully at least, in this example. I don't know, I've never tried doing this before, but I'm going to try to come in here and in W3 School see if I can put my own stuff in here. All right, so we've got image source equals images slash puppy.jpg. I don't know if it lets you do this or not. And I'm going to put in here puppy. It did not take that. So C:users JP Scott. That is the right path. All right, so we'll have to do it like this. This is fine. So I'm going to say in here puppy all. Don't want that. Puppy, let's say there's a thing in here for size. That's not what I want. Settings, no. Puppy, I'm going to put in puppy thumbnail. All right, these will be very small little puppies, hopefully. And we'll grab, it's kind of a funny one, so I'll grab that one. So I'm going to save the image as, and I'll just save it as puppy, and I'll overwrite the one that I've got. Do I want to replace it? Yes. In fact, I don't even want to do that. I want to copy. No, I don't want to copy the image. Sorry. I want to copy that image address. Link address. All right. So let's see if I can put that in here. If I can't, we'll just go on. It's not a problem. All right, did it take that? No, still doesn't like it. So they must want you to use their images. Okay, that's fine. So let's run this and let's go back and we'll refresh this and we'll get it back. Okay, what I want to show you is this. All right, if you want to float something, as they're showing it right here, because this is not a good example. But here we're floating to the left and we're putting the text on the right. Here we're putting the text on the left and we're floating to the right. All right. And you might say, well, big deal, who cares? All right. Well, notice this one says float right. If I change this from float right to float left and I run it, see how it changed? And if I change this one from float left to float right, Okay? What I'm trying to show you here is a lot of times you want you want images to flow around text or float, or text to float around images. Now, what we're learning here with floats is the old-fashioned way of doing it. There are better ways of doing it. I'm not going to show you those because there's just not enough time right now. All right, well, here's more on those image types, but that's totally fine. I'm going to type in here CSS floats. W3 schools, float and clear. There we go. So floats are typically used, as it says there, for positioning and formatting content. As an example, letting an image float to the left of a container. You already saw that. The ones that you'll use almost 100% of the time are the first three. I don't know if I've ever used inherit. But left, as it says, the element floats to the left of its container. Right, that it floats to the right of its container. And the default, which is none. So here's an example of floating to the right. So let's look at this. All right, you can see how the image is floated to the right. What if I don't do that? All right, what if I don't float this image? So what if I come in here and I take this code that you see right here and I comment it out? It may want CSS comments in here. It does. So now I've turned off the floating and I run it, and notice what happens. See that? It comes in, it puts in that first paragraph. In this example, that's what's right here. Then it puts in the image, which is right here, and then it puts the code right underneath it. Why does it start that right here? Remember that images are not block level elements. Images instead are inline elements. Now, if instead of saying float right here, I'm going to move this back. All right, let's put it back so it's floating right. What if I say float left? Again, you can see exactly what happens here. All right, works fine, totally fine. What if I do this? What if I say image and I say display block? Now it's on a line all by itself. The default is inline. So that's the default. So this, notice this is in the same area as this. It's one right next to the other. So again, what if I say display none? Then it just doesn't show it. It's gone. It's not invisible. It's now gone. So I can say none where the image doesn't display at all. I can say left where it displays on the left. All right. I can say right where it displays on, where it displays then I don't want display, I'm sorry. I can say float left, and it floats on the left. All right. I can say float right, where it floats on the right. I can say float none. What was the other possible value in here? I guess that wouldn't be a float none, it would be a display none. So let me go back to that. So I can say display none and have it disappear. All right. Those are just different ways that I can work, not just with images, but usually when you use float like this, you use it in accordance with you are floating text around an image or image around a text. All right. Okay. We have gone through some examples in here I'm going to go back and I'm going to use one of their examples. All right, just to try to make it real simple and show you something here. All right, because there was one more thing I really wanted to get into in this particular lecture. All right, let's see. Oh, I remember what I wanted to show you, and that is this. We'll put in here W3 schools, and I'm going to put in here forms. So I'm going to use one of their forms. I'm just going to keep this real simplistic. So there's a form. All right, but I'm going to put in some CSS in here because I want to show you something. So let's see, we got the body. So we need a head section in here. And we'll put a style tag in here. And I just want to show you this. Let's see. I'm going to put in here input type equals submit. Hopefully this is going to work. And I want my button to be rounded. Okay, so I'm going to say in here border radius, let's say 10 pixels. All right, now watch this button. See how it's now rounded? All right, so you can use border radius on a lot of different things to get different effects. Now, if I wanted a button to be totally round, I could say 50% here. And notice, all right, it actually makes it elliptical, and I think that's the way that buttons are set up. It won't go totally round. But you can take things and make them round by making them 50%. All right, a lot of times you use that with images and the like if you want that. But typically something like, if I want just a little bit, I can say 5 pixels. All right, you get a little bit of a rounded effect. Remember that 5 pixels pretty much is like 0.33 rem, I can say. And it's pretty much the same thing. If I want a little more, I could say 0.5 rem, etc. And you can see it rounding. All right. So the reason I wanted to mention that is I'm going to come in here again and I'm going to say I want to search inside of W3 schools. And I want to search for border radius. Okay, it doesn't like that. So W3 schools, border radius. All right, so there it is. And again, you can get some very strange effects depending on what you do in here. All right, I don't want to go off on too big a tangent there, but look at that. If you say 25 pixels, that's all the way around. But here, 50 pixels, so that's 50 on here and here. So the top left and the bottom right. See that? And again, like I said, you can get some very, very, very different effects by coming through and doing some of this stuff. All right? All right. I did mention something earlier, and I wanted to say it one more time. And that is, let's see, we're looking at this here. Let's look at this. All right, see where it says the border radius defines, etc. And what is that? That's the paragraph that's right here, right? Well, what if I decide I want to come in here and I put in this? We'll see whether or not it works. All right, let's look and see if this moves or not. It did not. And it might be because of the container that it's in. I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll come in here and I'll go back and do what we've been working on. All right. And let's So this is our site here and here, all right? And let's go to, let's create a new paragraph, and we'll make it a nice short paragraph, all right? So I'm going to come in here where we've got all this hello from, etc., and I'm going to put in a paragraph and say this is a simple paragraph. All right, and I'm even going to give it an ID. And I'm going to say ID equals, again, not a great name, but SP for simple paragraph. All right, so by default, the way that this is going to look then, it's down on the bottom. This is a simple paragraph. There it is. Okay, no biggie. But I'm going to take this ID of SP and I'm going to put it in here. And I'm going to say hashtag SP for small paragraph or simple paragraph. And I'm going to say here margin 0 auto. Okay. Oh, I need margin colon 0 auto. Now let's see if it changed at all. And it did not. Wonder if I can do this. If I can say P, SP. See if that fixes it. No. What I wanted to show you, let's just use W3 schools. Is how to center things. All right. So here's an example. Margin shorthand, we've already gone through this stuff. There's the auto. All right, so let's look here. See this? Now, we've got here for the div, which is what this is. It says here we want margin auto. I'm going to try 0 auto and see if it changes it at all. It did not, because that's usually the way that I do it. Now, if we come in here with this div and we change this to, let's say, 10 pixels, 20 pixels, something like that. You see how it changes. All right, it looks totally different now, right? All right, so I want to get rid of that. And I want to say in here, 0 auto again. And you see what happened. So what does this mean? This means I want no margin on the top and the bottom. No margin. I could put margin in here. I could put in 30 pixels. In fact, let's use rems. So 2 rems, which is 32 pixels. And notice it moved it down. But the auto is what I just wanted to mention to you. That says automatically center it on the left and right. And notice that if I change the size of this, how it stays centered. All right, till it reaches a certain point where it can't anymore. See that? But up till here, it still is. And even as I make this bigger, it still stays centered on the page. All right. All right. A couple more things that I want to talk about with you, and I will go on those in the next lecture.